How's it going, guys? My name is Jimmy Champagne, and today I'm here in Salem, Massachusetts because last night I saw Halloween in theaters and it was awesome. Before we get into the review, I feel like I should let you know, if you're a new viewer, that I've been covering this movie at pretty much a surgical level since May of 2016 when Adam Wingard was rumored to be directing it, and since then I've made about 35 videos about this movie specifically. So if you want a totally objective review, I guess I should say you're not going to get it here. This is definitely coming from a fan perspective, and I just felt like I should let you know if you're a new viewer. So with that out of the way, let's get into the review. So the very first thing you see in this movie is basically what you saw in the first trailer, with Dana and Martin coming over from the United Kingdom to make a true crime podcast about Michael Myers and Laurie Strode 40 years after the events of Halloween 1978. Michael escapes very soon after that, and things just kick off from there. The first thing that needs to be addressed here is whether or not this movie manages to make Michael scary in 2018, and I think it wholeheartedly succeeds for a few reasons. The first reason is the pacing, which is absolutely relentless, and it's much quicker than the original Halloween. It never gives you a chance to breathe, and the best word I have to describe it is actually scattershot, but in a good way. That quick pacing feeds directly into Michael's character. He is a lot more brutal this time around, and the reason he's so scary in this is because once he has the mask after he breaks out of Smith's Grove, the only thing he does is never stop moving and never stop killing. In fact, the only person who really seems to have a chance against him is Laurie Strode, which is perfect. Speaking of Laurie, she definitely is the total badass that was sold to us in all the trailers and interviews over the past year, but what I wasn't expecting is that the quirky weirdo from 1978 is still in there, and she kind of comes out once in a while, and it's great. She has this hardened shell, and she's trying to hide her trauma and who she really is from her family and all the people she loves around her, but as the movie goes on, those cracks start to show, and they get wider and wider, and everything just kind of pours out by the end. There isn't really a character that's more emblematic of how Laurie's trauma affects those around her than her daughter Karen. She's basically the antithesis to Laurie in the way that she pretends the world isn't scary and that nothing bad happens outside of her life. You can even see it in the man that she chose to marry, who's Ray, who's kind of like a bumbling idiot who makes dad jokes the entire time. Allison is a lot more like Laurie. She knows what's out there, she's strong-willed, she's smart, and she cares about her family, and she wants to see them together, and she wants to see them reconcile with each other, even though the years have been tough on all of them. Moving on to the good stuff, the kills in this movie are absolutely amazing, and I think there are more of them in this Halloween than possibly any other Halloween to date. And that's because the people who made it cleverly made sure that half of the kills happen on screen, and half of them you just see the aftermath. I think I almost like the ones where you see the aftermath better because you get to see the gore of what Michael has done to people, and that stops the ones you get to see from feeling stale, or it really just stops you from going numb to all the killing you're seeing happen in this movie. Unlike a lot of other slashers out there, Allison's friends in this movie are just straight up her friends. There's no manufactured subplots or drama dragging the entire plot down, and because they're her friends and you can see that she cares about them, I cared when I saw one of them die on screen, and I thought that was a really cool thing because I hate manufactured drama in horror movies. It doesn't work anymore. I've seen a lot of people harp on the fact that this movie doesn't have the blue color grading of the original Halloween, and I don't really think it needs it. This movie feels like it exists in the same universe as the 1978 original, but it also finds its own visual identity and modernizes the slasher, which I think is what this movie needed to do. If I wanted to see Halloween again, I would just watch Halloween again. I'm glad that this movie does its own thing, has its own great shot work, and finds its own visual identity. The lighting and camera work all has a lot more thought put into it than your average Blumhouse movie, and it feels like a Halloween movie more than any other sequel, except maybe Halloween 2. Something I was scared of going into this was that because it's a Blumhouse movie and it has a smaller budget, it would mostly take place all inside Laurie's house, but you actually see more of Haddonfield in this than you've seen in a very long time. And speaking of Haddonfield, this movie nailed the small town Midwest feel. You're introduced to Sheriff Deputy Hawkins, and he's playing pinball at the local 7-Eleven, and that totally reminded me of the cops who used to hang out at the gas station at the corner by my house. They talk to people while they're pumping gas, and this is a small town with a very small police force, and even with modern technology, you can see how someone like Michael escaping from Smith's Grove would be able to pull the rug out from under them. The one take that happens after Michael escapes has been hyped up pretty much ever since it was shown at San Diego Comic-Con, and it earned that hype. That was one of the coolest sequences I've ever seen in a horror movie. Michael is just good at killing, and he absolutely loves it, and it's hard to imagine that he's not smiling under that mask even though you never see his face. On its own, Halloween would be a competent and well-made slasher, but the glue that kind of like holds all the pieces together and elevates the movie into greatness, I guess, is John Carpenter's score. It's just honestly his best work yet, and I absolutely loved it. I thought we'd be hearing a lot of that iconic 1978 theme, even though David Gordon Green said it's kind of just sprinkled throughout, and he wasn't lying. A lot of the music, actually the vast majority of the music in this movie, is brand new, and I cannot wait to have the soundtrack as soon as it's released. As far as negatives go, I racked my brain and I could only really come up with two, and they're very nitpicky. The first is that there's a Loomis sound-alike in this movie, but the problem is they call him a sound-alike, but he doesn't sound like Loomis. I honestly think it's worse than H20, which is saying a lot because that sound-alike was bad. The second thing I didn't really like is that there's a whole subplot of Allison having a boyfriend, and he feels totally tacked on. This guy literally exists to serve the plot, and it was extra jarring because every other character in this movie seems like they have a reason to be there. I just really didn't like the whole arc with her boyfriend. It felt like it was the least thought out thing in this entire movie. At the end of the day, Halloween is a franchise that's been a part of my life since I was about 5 years old, and all I've ever wanted is to be able to see a movie that lives up to the original in theaters, and I think we finally got it with this one. There's no doubt in my mind that this movie is gonna reinvigorate the franchise and the slasher genre as a whole, and I cannot wait for people to go and see it for themselves. And those are my spoiler-free thoughts on Halloween. I have a lot more to say about this movie, but at the risk of spoiling anything for you guys, I'm saving it for a bigger video that I'll post closer to release. Let me know what you think of this video down in the comments below, and make sure you check back this weekend for my One Good Scare video on Rob Zombie's Halloween. Anyways guys, my name is Jimmy Champagne, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.